So I've been asked variations on this question. Is what I do in the energy arts, is that just some like natural ability that I have, some healing gift that I was born with, or have I had certain teachers? And the answer for me is that I've had a very unique path. I was definitely born with the ability to see and feel, and was considered very sensitive when I was a child. I just didn't know that other people didn't see and feel these things. I over the years, I had different people sit me down and say, Kat, people don't always see the stuff that you're talking about. So I did feel a little bit like a strange alien growing up. And there was always a part of me that wanted to make sense of this world that I was living in. And when I was age 9 and 10 for summer, I actually attended a mystery school. Don't ask me, it wasn't like I searched for it, it just kind of fell into my lap. And that's where I was introduced into working with like the psychic healing arts, as well as when we see spirits, how to manage it. Because there's, and I think most children, because I do work with kids, we do have an ability to see. That does get shut down as we go to school, and certain things get indoctrinated in, and we're kind of taught how to function, how to use our brain, how to use our senses. And one of my passions is actually, let's ignite our super senses again. Like, while we all may have, and some of us may have specific kinds of healing abilities or psychic abilities, my belief is that more of us have access to that. We just forgot about it. It's portals that we've let fall asleep, or we haven't opened the doors to them. And so when you work with me, what's important to me is less about, I have no interest in you doing my way or being like me whatsoever. Like, I do me, you do you. But what is important to me is that if there are parts of you that you haven't given permission to, that you haven't given access to, let's open that up. And we all have our own kind of our own unique connection to magic. So I can't teach someone to be sensitive. I can't teach someone how to do healing. And what I mean by that is, usually we're sensitive or able to sense or able to feel when we are in our body. If you're not in your body, you're going to be up in your head. You're not actually going to be able to feel or sense what's going on. So what I can teach you is how to get in your body, and how to meet those parts of you that are terrified and resistant and reluctant and not excited about getting in your body. I can help you meet those and find a way back home that's pleasurable and joyful and, worth it. And from there, that's when you can start to sense your particular way of tuning in. And some of us are going to be more feelers, some of us are going to be more seers, some of us are going to be more clairaudient. The Native Americans say that we have 13 senses. And the more reverence we give to specific senses, then the other ones start to expand as well. I personally have not been taught how to do things. For me, it's always been, in any healing modality I've been in, when someone has started to say, okay, we're going to start to learn to pay attention to these aspects, I've always had my own internal teachers, and kind of from the vertical plane and from the ground, come through and show me the way as well. And what I think is very interesting, especially in this day and age, where there's so much of a need to get like certification and to go to school for certain things. And of course, like, if I was gonna go get like a heart transplant, I'm gonna go to a doctor who's actually gone to school for that. I would not go to a doctor who has just kind of downloaded from the ethers how to do that, right? But it is interesting when we think about the energetic arts, is like, well, who are our teachers, and where do these teachings come from? Because a lot of times, if I'm learning from a human on the horizontal plane, I'm also going to be privy to their subjective experience, to their conditioned mind, to their wounds, to the stuff that they haven't met within themselves. And I definitely, while I've had some great teachers, I've also have had very messy experiences that have made me realize how important we hold our own field is. So, in the bigger picture too, like, our greatest teachers is life. Like, life's your teacher. So when people say, like, Kat, who's your teacher? Well, it's like, I tend to learn from everything, and my pain has been my greatest teacher. So what got me on this path was, even though I was, in that mystery school, I was 9 and 10, so I wasn't giving a lot of reverence to that. And even though when I was 14, I met my first medicine man, and he taught me about spirit animals, and I did my first sweat lodge. Again, like, I was still just like this awkward middle schooler and teenager, like, just making sense of the world. And at the age of 17, like, at that time, 17 and 18, I was so anorexic. I was bulimic if I did eat, and I would take any drug that I wanted. And to me, I knew that there was a spiritual crisis going on, that there were, without anyone ever talking to me about ancestral lines and imprints, like, I knew there was something fucked in my family line that had to get met. And I was desperate for a way through, and traditional therapy was not cutting it for me. So my game changer was meditation. I remember sitting down for the first time for 40 minutes, and it was not just the easiest thing, but like, everything made sense. I was like, oh my God, I am the universe. I am God. We are all God. We are the universe. Like, this is us. And I was in awe. I mean, imagine realizing that and then looking around at everyone else, while I'm walking down the streets, while I'm in school, thinking, we're in this godness together. Like, that's pretty amazing. And that was my motivation, was I'm just going to keep sitting with myself, because suddenly there was this sparkle, this aliveness that made me want to be here. And from that, and what I loved was both meditation and asana and pranayama. I had very simple teachers that just got me to do practices and go inside. No one had to tell me what to think, feel, realize, or know. Just these practices of me being with me. Suddenly I was feeling like, oh, I have an emotional body that carries pain. No one told me this. I knew because I sat with myself and I could feel this old pain coming out. So that's what I loved about the practices. I was like, for once, especially coming from very westernized education, to have something where, you mean I can have wisdom without someone teaching me this? That's pretty amazing. So that's kind of what sold me on yoga and meditation, at least from where I came from. I didn't have a guru, and I'm sure there are those of you who might think like, you need to have a guru, blah, blah, blah. Trust me, I looked. I got molested sometimes, but I never found a guru, so my way through has always been, I've got to learn to be with myself. And to me, learning to sit with our pain, that's going to be the teacher. And because, as an American, we're very smorgasbordy, we're gonna taste everything that we want. Yeah, I got my hands into anything that I could get my hands into. So I was like, what's this Reiki? What's this Qigong? What are all the different kinds of yoga that you can do? What's this Essene healing practice? What's craniosacral therapy? Like, I really just, I am an enthusiastic learner. So I kind of nibbled on certain things, and things that seemed a little bit more interesting and giving me something, like, I hung out there more. So a lot of the stuff that I teach, I have to be honest, is just stuff that I've learned from sitting with myself. I've been lucky to have so much pain where I've got a lot of material that I get to work with. And also in the years that I have done hands-on work, like that to me, both teaching classes with large groups around the world and also working one-on-one with so many different kinds of personalities and different age groups and things that like, oh, I didn't even know this existed, is usually what I think while I'm giving a session. I learn a lot. So I definitely am an experiential learner, and that's why also when I teach, I'm a big fan of experience. That's not to say that there have been particular teachers that have given me really helpful teachings, whether it was in a dark arts experience where it's like, oh, yeah, I learned that we don't do that, or in a really positive healing arts experience. One of my teachers back in the day in biodynamic craniosacotherapy, Leonid Sobolev, you know, he was one who, I would say he was the one that encouraged me to really start teaching my work, and also helped admit that, yeah, I'm not really doing biodynamic craniosacotherapy, like I'm doing my own thing. So I am grateful for his support in that. And yet for the years that I spent working, like learning under him, and also there were times where I was assisting him as well, I learned so much on how to hold space and in working through the different methodologies of the body. He was the first person who, because I could see entities very easily, that also validated, like, yeah, Kat, you're not crazy. Just most people don't see these things, and helped me discover like a healthy way to work with them. And also, you know, having had anorexia and bulimia for so many years, and regressing, and you know, anyone with an addiction or eating disorder, like, you're gonna go back and fall downhill anytime trauma happens. Yeah, I had a great therapist, Stephanie O'Connor, who helped me learn, like, how do I actually function on this planet and not always go into these self-destructive patterns. So I did a fuckload of therapy, let me just say. You know, and through her, I experienced her version of somatic experiencing. And it was interesting to see her way of working with the energetic arts in the Barbara Brennan School. And I would imagine she's done some other training too, but you know, you'd have to ask her. And you know, and I've just hung out, like I remember when I was in Australia, I've hung out with different Aboriginals where, you know, it's not like you go and you study under them, but having like an experience, that is going to be something that's taught me. You give me any time where I'm sitting with the land, I'm gonna learn something. I'm an open source. So there's a lot of stuff that I learned where it's like I remember I took a training with this shaman, and he looked at me and he said, how did you learn this thing that you're doing? I'm like, I don't know, I'm just doing it. So to me, there are those of us who, there are certain things that we kind of just know when we sit in the field. That's the easiest way I can describe it. And usually those are going to be my students, where there's just already a certain openness in our field where things just make sense. No one has to explain it to us. So, you know, my personality, I have not ever studied in one specific lineage, and that's not me being disrespectful. I respect every single lineage. Well, I'm sure there's some that are a little special, but you know, I do respect every single lineage and system. I've just never found one particular system that has really nailed it for me. And what I think is fascinating is that I don't think our learning ever comes from the horizontal plane. Like, think about back when DNA, I guess when they discovered DNA, you know, the search for the double helix. Wasn't it like two different groups of scientists at the same time had the same realization? I mean, there are so many different examples that it's never just one person making a discovery. It's like in the collective consciousness, there's a wave of information that's coming through, and that's when we're all starting to glean the same information at the same time. My yoga teacher friends out there, I'm sure you know this, where suddenly we all get the download that the sequence of today is this, and we all, without consulting one another, are teaching the same yogic sequence. And I think we need to give more respect that there's interdimensional or multidimensional ways that we're learning and that we're communicating with one another. And that to me is where my teacher's been. My teacher is the invisible field. So one thing I have to make sure is that I'm sitting with myself, that I don't take things that cloud or fuck up my channel. You know, I've got to make sure that my self-care is pretty impeccable so that I'm open to what I'm receiving, and I'm discerning. I am discerning as to what kind of information I'm allowing in. So that to me is the teacher. So my work is not to give you a system, because that's just like a very linear and almost egoic way of sharing information. What I care about is that you are the open channel for you to receive what you need, so that you've got your light coming through you, and that you actually can know what's true for you. That's that. Namaste.